According to UN figures, human trafficking is a $30 billion a year enterprise and the fastest growing sector of the illicit economy. Even after security was stepped up in the wake of the 9/11 attacks, the number of people crossing illegally into America is roughly 500,000 a year. Some come in on their own, but many have paid traffickers to get them in. Research has revealed that Chinese counterfeiters work with Nigerian traffickers to bring Senegalese workers into cities in Europe and the United States, forging an informal illicit labor network. In Naples, the Senegalese are the foot soldiers of illicit trade, and its human face.
I know it's wrong to sell illegal DVDs, and that makes me frightened. But I'll do it for one reason, to survive. But the fear is there from morning to night.
Here, they are the bottom rung of the economy and society. But in Senegal, many of these men were university educated and worked as teachers, managers, even doctors. As illicit traders working on the streets, it's a life often defined by their unpredictable relationship with the Camorra and police who want to shut them down.
I'm always worried all my bags could be seized, and then I lose everything. Then I can't send money home to my family. It's like having your shop burned down.
The Senegalese are just one tiny cog in a mighty illicit economic machine that has virtually captured an entire city.
Naples is a good example of what happens when illicit trade runs rampant. The networks just take over and dominate the city.
No part of Naples better reflects the Camorra stranglehold than the rundown suburb of Scampiere. Here, open-air drug markets appear to operate freely. Drugs make up the most lucrative part of the Camorra's operation. But from the perspective of an illicit business, perhaps the main appeal of Scampiere is the supply of unemployed people ready to take whatever work the crime families provide.
I do this work because in Naples there are no jobs. You can only get work for a month or so. If you don't sell drugs, how can you eat?
Some argue the illicit economy provides employment. Seviano sees another side.
Io considero il sistema purtroppo un moltiplicatore di profitto.
This underground economy does nothing to lift people out of poverty. Instead, a few Camorra bosses get rich very quickly.
The Camorra is a kind of second state here in Naples, in the sense that they provide money, they provide jobs instead of the state. And so they have a huge power over here, and they can control votes for the elections, so they can control the politics.
That power is a license to make money. One Italian business group estimated that the Camorra and other criminal organizations earned $120 billion last year. That's more revenue than Italy's largest corporation. These illegal corporate profits are dirty money, which is almost useless unless it can be washed clean. Money laundering conceals the true criminal source of the funds. It allows illicit crime to pay, and to pay well. Money laundering offers the best glimpse of the total size of the world's illicit economy. Estimates put it as high as $5 trillion per year. The electronic banking boom has made it far easier to launder money.
When I asked a Swiss banker how much harder it had become after 9/11 to launder, say, $50 million, he looked at me, smiled, and said, The only difference is that I now charge more.
Real estate is a popular way for criminals to put huge volumes of illicit money through the wash. On the outskirts of Naples, the Camorra built an entire housing complex. The sheer size of the project is an indicator of how much cash they needed to clean. The gangsters pay for land, materials, and construction workers with dirty cash. When they sell the property, the money they take in is clean. This site would have been worth more than $130 million. But these contractors haven't been hired by the Camorra. This is an Italian army demolition team. Destroying the project stopped the money laundering process. It also eliminated a development that was built with complete disregard for safety standards. But for every laundering scheme that stopped, many more reaped dramatic profits for illicit networks.
These networks now have so much money that they can buy immense political power. As a result, we're seeing all over the world a growing criminalization of politics, where criminals are getting into politics and politicians are becoming criminals.
No single individual better illustrates that transformation than Vladimiro Montesinos, the head of the intelligence service in Peru for 10 years. While in the job of fighting drug traffickers, he was running a drug smuggling network that was also involved in weapons dealing and money laundering. He relied on a comprehensive video recording system to incriminate all the people he bought off. These tapes, over 1,000 in all, became the evidence used to convict him.
This is now on a scale that we have never seen before. These people are running countries. The president of Lithuania, for example, was impeached because of his links with the Russian mafia. In Mexico, the general that was the head of the anti-drug police was also in the payroll of the drug cartel. It's impossible to imagine that this volume of trade that is illicit can happen without the active complicity of government officials, armies, judges, magistrates, and police departments.
This kind of corruption doesn't just enrich generals and crooked bureaucrats. Here in Panama, it killed people. In the autumn of 2006, patients began flooding into a hospital in Panama City with a mysterious illness. Doctors knew they had a crisis on their hands, but struggled to find the cause.
In the first 24 hours, there is a sense that this could very well be an infectious disease of epidemic proportions, and that this could have spread to the rest of the population. And it was quite frightening to think that this was going on and that we didn't know what it was.
Panama Canal employee Carlos Umanzor, a father of 7, began to develop severe symptoms.
He had a high fever, and he couldn't stop vomiting.
And the relatives were worried because their loved ones were very ill, but they had been living with them in their houses. So who was going to be next? My child, the wife, the mother. So it was uncertainty and fear.
Patients began to die in alarming numbers. Doctors worked frantically around the clock to find the source of the sickness. It was the case of Carlos Umanzor, the Panama Canal worker.